1,000 we get it done right or don't blow ourselves up along the way.
I like those odds. We'll just turn it off before we blow up.
Give me 5. Now, down low.
Why would you do that?
Because you are too slow.
Alright, so Ricardo, you will talk about the 3rd season of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Don't get mad at me for saying this, but I only watched the series premiere of it. I was, because it came out around the time when Star Trek Discovery, which was the Star Trek show that I was invested in the most. Picard, well, you already warned me about how bad Picard was for you with that first season. That was the only season that I watched. Right. And then you told me that it didn't really get any better, even though it had to speed things up with the 3rd season and wrap things up now,
right.
Right.
But that was the intention. I think that was the intention of the show. The show was always meant to be 3 seasons. But the 2nd season is still probably some of my least favorite Star Trek ever. Like, it's pretty bad. The 3rd season is a big nostalgia fest, is whether, however you feel about that. Right? It had some genuinely great episodes here, however. Anyway, getting to Strange New Worlds, yeah, this is probably the weakest season so far.
Wow.
Yeah. But it's not atrocious or horrible, but I don't know, for some reason or the other, there's 2 things that just kind of really annoy me. Not so much bother me, because, like, wherever they're going to do it. Alright, so there's a little background. I'm not sure how political it's getting, but from what I understand, Skydance, they bought out the Star Trek franchise, and CBS and everything involving Paramount got bought out, including Star Trek. And you're not sure if it tied to Trump or how much it tied to Trump, and there's a whole sort of politics stuff. We're not sure, right? Whatever. But the point is, a lot of people think, at least some fans think, that how the show going to become more, for lack of a better term, regressive. At least relatively regressive, consider the franchise, right? Especially in comparison to Discovery, where Discovery, a lot of people see it as a much more progressive show in its conceit, even though I don't think the writing was all that great. But that doesn't really matter. And, the question is if they're going to do that for what it is. And Strange New Worlds was kind of like that. To me, Strange New Worlds, I've always said, Strange New Worlds, at least to me, felt like a kind of answer. Not so much an answer, but like just working in the framework of appealing to that kind of nostalgia, right? And you got that with season 1 and 2. As I said, it's like official Orville, right? Orville was a show that appealed to Star Trek nostalgia, for better or for worse, and this show does the same thing, for better or for worse. And then they start like really leaning into it for this season, because we get to see, for some reason, they keep bringing back, Captain Kirk, right? Well, he's not captain yet, he's James Kirk, and they really like trying to push this whole, we're gonna remake TOS stuff now. And it's like, yeah, but we don't need to remake TOS, right? I go with that. Like, we don't do that with Pine and them. Pine and them, is however you feel about that. And another thing with this season is that this season, it does a lot of, like, for lack of a better term, a lot of gimmick episodes, a lot of jokey episodes. Stuff that, it's funny, kind of, but not really, and it's funny for a certain crowd. And again, it as I said, it really felt like, I really felt like if this was kind of, well, not necessarily competing, because again, I don't know what the behind the scenes is, but it felt like it was trying to be the Orville. Right? It's like, oh, well, it need to be funny, but cater to nostalgia and cater to this and so on. And again, you will find out after the fact how much of that is the case, because, Seth MacFarlane wanted to take over at some point. And then it really felt like he get drawn out, or at least not accepted, and he went to make his own Star Trek effectively, right? And that is what this really felt like. This season was just like a lot of jokey episodes, a lot of thing. It wasn't that serious. I couldn't take the ending too serious, because I find the main plot was kind of weak. It had some okay episodes here or there spliced in, but most of it didn't really work for me. This season was, again, pound for pound, probably the weakest season. Not horrible, not like, wait, this is real trash and a waste of time. Not Star Trek Picard season 2, but still pretty bad, relatively speaking. And it just meh, and they're not doing anything for me. And I really thought they would have set up something interesting going forward with Pike and what to do with this. And yeah, another thing is that these Strange New Worlds, we're not getting enough Strange New Worlds. Like, it doesn't do that much exploration in its conceits. And they just do the Gorn thing. They wrap up the Gorn thing with a character called Battelle. She was the character from the cliffhanger in season 2, and she, infected by the Gorn, and then what they doing with that. And yeah, I don't know. I didn't completely hate this season, but this was overall a pretty disappointed season for me. It is neither here nor there. I was giving each episode a chance. And the one that I really thought would have been like the interesting one, that was the one that was hyping up with the Vulcans one. It's our episode called 4.5 Vulcans. That one was kind of probably one of the weakest ones to me. Like, and again, if you're into the joke, the whole thing is just an extended SNL bit, right? Like, all the characters, a bunch of human characters turned to Vulcans. Pike was basically playing Beldar Conehead instead of, like, he didn't feel like he felt more like that, like, instead of an actual Vulcan, however. Overall, yeah, I was pretty underwhelmed with this whole season. Again, not I can't in good conscience say I hated it. I'll probably rewatch a couple episodes just to see, all right, if I really hated it or not. But yeah, I couldn't get into it. And I think one of the big problems is that yeah, Alien Earth going on right now. So it's like, oh well, kind of chalk and cheese in terms of sci-fi. I know it's two different franchises and tones, but like, wow, Alien Earth is like I'm close in terms of quality, like the effort, and it does feel, sorry to say, it does feel kind of half-assed. We'll see with season 4 again, 2 more seasons. I think they're wrapping up with 5. Great, like where they'll go with that. But yeah, I was pretty underwhelmed with this. So the future of the franchise in kind of in a weird space right now. But we'll find out. But yeah, overall ratings, I don't know. Yeah, 6, probably a 5 out of 10 overall. I was genuinely underwhelmed with this whole season, and it's a damn shame that they could have do more with it. Like it's time to get into that. It's the opposite problem of Discovery now, where that show, I thought Discovery had potential to do something interesting, and then they fall into a kind of basic plotline, and then they can get basic. This one also falls into a basic plotline, but from the opposite end of being nostalgic and just appealing to stuff that we liked in the past, in terms of concepts and conceits, and just playing it in the old way. This one just felt a little too gimmicky and just it update. And I could get in a big deeper argument of what the problem is with Star Trek, but I'll get into that here. But as it is, didn't really love with this season. But season 2 was also kind of blare, but it was still like within the framework of, okay, I'm enjoying this kind of. That's it. Yeah, 6 out of 10, probably like a 5, closer to a 5 to be honest. Yeah, that's how I feel about this Star Trek Strange New Worlds season 2.
Alright, so I have to ask as a non-tricky, like still non-tricky, right? Is it that the franchise showrunners just desperate for ideas, they're just really, really trying to figure out where to go next, and they're just trying things, but it just not sticking? What's going on?
Here's the problem. Now, again, I had to get into a deeper problem, but I think there's a deeper, more, for lack of a better, political thing, and it's not nothing to do with any current administration or anything like that. But I've made the argument, I've said this before, and we could get into a whole deep argument. But I said this before. I think Star Trek have the same problem that James Bond has, where the conceit of the politics is very outdated. Right, it's something that never evolved itself, and then when it evolved itself, like in the 90s, then it had to do that. But this show kind of don't want to do both. So when it's time for it to actually progress itself in an interesting way in terms of talking about the show, it kind of chickening out. So there's one episode that had a potential to be really like actually engaging and fascinating, and it kind of chicken out at the end. Right, basically it's a documentary episode. Right, you'll see it when you see it, and it's like, well, yeah, these are the kind of questions people should be asking with the show. DS9 did this again. I hate to keep bringing back up DS9, but DS9 kind of they kind of cook with respect to criticizing the franchise in of itself in a meta sense through the narrative of the story, right? And that's why the show started to do that and then couldn't do it, and it's sorry to say, but it just kind of half-assed the problem. In the end, they feel like it really feel like if the higher ups jump in and say, "Watch now, you can't do this. It's a little too critical of the franchise, or critical of the show, or this is not the message we want." And like, well, that's where the show should go. That's how I feel about it. Speculation time on my part, but that's what I felt about it. And again, it could be connected to the big changes and the big sell-offs and whatever it is. But I don't think so. I just think it's like, yeah, it's just a bunch of older mostly white writers, kind of stuck in their ways. Like that's kind of the main problem. That might be it. Could be more. There more people, there are better people out here who could tell you better as to why this is the case or not. Right? Somebody I strongly recommend in terms of keeping up with the progressive end of Trek or Trek fandom, Jessie Gender, right? Yeah, she just make a real good conceit of, hey, this is how to explain this or how to get it and where to go. But that is not what we get. However, I just couldn't get into it. I was really, really bored and mostly underwhelmed with a lot of it. Very little of it was engaging. It had a couple okay episodes. Like it had one with a alien guy who get a human who get his body snatched from an alien, and it's a whole thing. And the actor was pretty good. We could play the villain, and although he comes back in the ending, and that whole thing falls flat. But whatever. That episode with introducing was pretty cool. And that's about it. That's how I feel.
Right. If I just have one more question, right? Because, yeah, just from what it is you're telling me, yeah, I am less reluctant to even start watching this show, right? Unless something major happens in the next couple of seasons, right?
You mean more reluctant, right?
Yeah. Sorry about that, yeah. But, yeah, is it that the higher-ups, as you call them, they are not aware of the discourse that goes on social media? Like, they don't go on Reddit or X and listen to what people are saying? you know.
Listen, TV shows take a long time to make, so you don't know where the space gonna be and who had to do what and why and where the world will change. The world changing faster than ever. You know, just this week it had some major political incident that happened in the States. You know, that kind of stuff, right? So you don't know. But again, that is speculation on my part. You know, I just think that's what it feels like. That's what it feels like. I don't know. But I don't know. As I said, I just think it's just a matter of just, you know, where you should go with respect to the show. And the show just feels very retrograde. This show in particular, this show is like, are we really doing this still? And this idea, and then it have a bunch of like, everything is a joke this and a joke that now. And it's like, all right, I mean, I suppose, but like, you know, you could just do more interesting ideas, right? Maybe, right? I don't know. That's just me. I can't like tell people otherwise because like, that's the show. That's what the show want to do and want to push in its preferences though. And it have older over. All I'll say is that it catering to the older Star Trek fans in all the wrong ways, right? It's a different conceit, but it's not even adding to stuff that it should fill up. That's how it feels now. Like if you're saying you're doing it good Strange New Worlds, then make it feel like Strange New Worlds. Do that. But then they don't do that. They want to do like a bunch of gimmick stuff. And I was saying it almost feels like it's trying to compete with the Orville. Like, why have so many comedy episodes in such a short season? And this wouldn't have been a big deal if the seasons weren't so short, right? If the season was like how Star Trek was in the 90s, where it was like 22 episodes or whatever. This would have been not that big of a deal. You could have, you know, one-off gimmicky episodes that you could get away with. But that is in a whole longer season where it's more diluted. But this now is like, yes, 10 episodes to like, you know, wrap it up, you know, speed it, you know, you gotta get it. No. However, that's about it for me. I can't say I'm super disappointed. We'll see with season 4. But this is easily the weakest season of the show so far.